was not done by you. And when you were city council president, it felt like you were more invested in actually finding a great candidate than this time. And then my question to Worley is, I'm from the Northeast District, and I've lived there 10 years. You had a tenure of major up there. And during that tenure, there were a number of police brutality cases under your watch. And all of those officers were pretty much left on the force, improperly investigated, and one was even promoted to sergeant, and he was one of the most egregious. So I'd like to know why rogue police officers are promoted, and are you going to continue that practice?
So I'll start, and thank you for your comment and your question, ma'am. And I'll just say this: the process that was taken, I think we all need to be reminded about the real process that happened with Commissioner Harrison. Commissioner Harrison wasn't the first person nominated for that position, right? So myself and some other members of the council actually went to Texas to do the fact finding on that individual, and we, amongst with other community members, pushed to have Commissioner Harrison come here. And I think we also have to be reminded of where the BPD was in 2018, 2019 when we're having this discussion. We are coming out of the unrest in Freddie Gray, GTTF, Violent Crime Impact Section, whatever you want to call it, and BPD at that time, when you talk to police departments and mayors across the country, the Department of Justice obviously was seen literally as the bottom of the barrel. Now we're in 2023 and it's the flip. We are the department that DOJ, the White House, that other cities look to. I am the mayor that other mayors call when they're looking and saying, like, how did you guys do this? How did you do these policies? We know that you're not done with your consent decree. We know that you're not done with your reforms, but you guys are so much ahead of where we are. And we said, and Commissioner Harrison said, I know he said this publicly, that his commitment to me as a council person was that when he left this department, that it would be time for us to do what Baltimore hasn't been able to do for many, many years, and that's to home grow. And I think that we have to be reminded about the times that we have, other than him, went outside and what has happened on the streets of Baltimore. When we went to New York, we ended up with policies that ended up in us in a consent decree and in the lawsuits. It's time now for us to grow our department from within, and that's why I made the decision to appoint Commissioner Worley.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll answer the question. As a Northeast commander, I was in charge of 140 officers. Any accusations against the officers, they're not investigated by the district commander or anyone really in the district. It's turned over to Internal Affairs, which is a separate and distinct department that investigates the complaints.
I know, I dealt with them, they're a joke.
Well, that's the way the process works. If someone makes a complaint to Internal Affairs, it gets investigated. Lots of times the officers will come off the street till the investigation is complete, and then once the investigation is complete, they give their recommendations, and then we follow the recommendations.
Yeah, so I already know that the Internal Affairs is like, the process is pretty much like a joke as far as citizens are concerned. But my thing is, you were the boss over there at over 140, and now you're going to be the boss of all of them, every district. So how are corrupt, rogue police officers going to be handled? Like, that doesn't really answer my question. I understand the IAD process. I went through it, and I sued the city. So I already know how that goes, and I know how, like, it's used as a cover-up tactic, just to be real. So what are you going to do about rogue police brutality riddled officers? Because they're still on your force, and one is a sergeant.
Well, the good thing is that the BPD has come a long way in several years. I left Northeast District in 2016. We are a totally different department. We basically do not want to have any bad cops. The only thing I can say is the worst thing for a good cop is a bad cop, because they tarnish the profession. As you saw in several major events throughout the country, it doesn't even have to happen in Baltimore. The profession is looked at as being corrupt. And our job is through the Public Integrity Bureau, which is overseen by the Department of Justice, and our consent decree monitor and the federal judge to make sure things have changed and things are done right, and we are in the right place right now.